So here's Redeemed Zoomer with all atheist arguments answered in 10 minutes. All of them. And there's so much stupid, we'll have to do it in 2 parts.
Atheists have a lot of arguments, but they never really think of anything new that the church hasn't had answers to for the past 2,000 years.
Laughably untrue. Notice I have video after video showing them running and hiding from the problem of evil, for example.
Religion causes wars.
Strawman. Geez, are they all gonna be strawmen?
Well, actually, only 7% of all human wars were caused by religion, and if you remove Islamic wars, that number drops down to 3%.
Last time I checked, Islam was a religion. But you're not really here defending religion in general, are you? Just Christianity. How disingenuous can you get? At any rate, your straw man claim was that religion causes wars. That does not mean that only religion causes wars. You're the one who made the straw man, and you still can't respond to it.
If you were born somewhere else, you wouldn't be a Christian.
Straw man again.
Okay, and if you were born somewhere else, you wouldn't be an atheist.
And an even dumber response than the last one. You do realize that most of us grew up in religious households and areas, right? Anyway, the point of this argument is that one's religion is heavily influenced by what part of the world they're from. That's not the case with the methods of rationality. The people who have concluded that dinosaurs were killed by an asteroid as opposed to climate change aren't all grouped in one area. If the asteroiders were all in Europe and the climaters were all in Asia, we'd think there was something weird about that.
How do you know which religion is true?
This isn't even an argument. If you're gonna make up straw man arguments, at least put them in the form of an argument. What we're asking for is evidence of your claims, which you don't even attempt to provide.
There's no scientific proof that God exists. Well, by definition, science can only prove things inside the natural world.
Wrong. Science can prove things that have any kind of observable or testable effect. And religions of all sorts, including yours, make all sorts of claims that we can test. And lo and behold, every time we do, they're shown to be false.
And by definition, God is something outside the natural world.
Blatant special pleading. By definition, God has an effect on the natural world. Otherwise, there'd be no point to religion.
There's no evidence of anything supernatural. Well, that's just not accurate.
No, it's totally accurate.
There are medically documented cases of people with demonic possession speaking in languages they don't know, for example.
None of which have been verified. There isn't a single documented example of someone speaking in a language that's unknown to them that's been shown to be anything other than gibberish when shown to someone who actually does speak that language.
And people with near-death experiences getting information they never had access to.
Again, every single account of this has been debunked.
The Bible has contradictions. Okay, you think you found an apparent contradiction that the church hasn't known about for 2,000 years?
Sad and pathetic lie. I'm just gonna link to the Skeptic's Annotated Bible. Has a whole boatload of them.
Every apparent contradiction can be explained by understanding just a little bit of theology.
Okay then, explain how Judas died, without it being anything other than a fanboy retcon.
The Gospels were anonymous. Okay, anonymous doesn't mean we have no idea who wrote them.
Yeah, it does.
It just means the names of the authors aren't signed in the text itself. But we literally have writings from church fathers who knew the apostles.
Outright lie! We don't even have fragments of any texts so much as referencing the Gospels until the 2nd century.
And can verify that they indeed wrote the books named after them.
The names were arbitrarily assigned to the books in the 3rd century. The only one of them that even had a title was Mark, and it was simply the beginning of the Gospel of Jesus Christ. The others didn't even have titles, and none had authorships. And we also know that Matthew and Luke weren't even original Gospels. They had at least two sources. One was Mark, and the other was a source documenting sayings attributed to Jesus, designated by scholars as Q. It would have been similar to the Gospel of Thomas, which was found as part of the Nag Hammadi library.
The Gospels misquote Jesus.
Some of these I can't even figure out what they're supposed to be straw men of. No one is saying that anything misquotes Jesus because we don't have any actual quotes of Jesus to compare them to.
Now, it's true that a lot of secular scholars think the Gospels are a mix of real quotes from the historical Jesus and fake quotes added by the church, but none of them can agree on which quotes are legit and which are not, so we can discard their opinions.
Huh? How does that even follow? At any rate, we know that a lot of the things attributed to Jesus in the received texts are later additions that were just stuck on, which is why a lot of more recent translations omit those passages.
Jesus never claimed to be God.
Again, I don't know any atheist who even bothers to make this claim. We don't know what Jesus actually did or did not say, and even if he did, so what? Lots of people claim lots of crazy things.
The later one of the Gospels was written, the more divine it makes Jesus seem, so we can extrapolate that Jesus was originally a human figure who got made more divine over time.
Again, this is a big whatever. Got any actual arguments we make? Is the problem of evil in our future?
The Bible supports slavery. No, it doesn't.
Yes, it does.
Just because there's slavery in the Bible doesn't mean the Bible supports it. There are some Old Testament verses that could be interpreted as condoning slavery, but Jesus himself said that the Old Testament made accommodations to people's sinful state.
Yeah, so the Bible is the divine word of God Almighty, but the Old Testament doesn't count whenever it's inconvenient for us. Okay then, we'll stick to the New Testament. So what about Ephesians chapter 6 verses 5 through 8? I'm just going to put it on the screen, pause and read. And when you're done with that, what about 1 Peter chapter 2 verse 18? These clearly say that slaves must submit to their masters even when they're mistreated.
Christianity supported slavery. Well, sure, some Christians did.
Some! How come in the first 1600 years of Christianity and more was there not one single figure who spoke out against slavery? Why is it only with the Enlightenment, and along with it, skepticism of religion, that we finally got the idea that it was wrong?
But all human civilizations have had slavery. Christian civilization was the first one to abolish it on moral grounds.
Outright lie! Christendom had it for many, many, many centuries. If Christian morals were so anti-slavery, why did it take 17 centuries to even get the idea?
The fact that you're against slavery is due to Christian influence.
Another lie! It's due to the influence of Enlightenment thinkers, who were skeptical of Christianity and religion.
God killed tons of people in the Bible. Well, it's actually way more than that. God numbers everyone's days. He's the giver of life, so he can take it, especially if people sin.
Yeah, that's called being a murderous psychopath.
Atheist countries are more prosperous. Yes, it's true that Northern European countries are very prosperous and very secular, but correlation doesn't equal causation.
Oh, for the absolute love of...
There's 4,000 gods that people believe in, and you're atheist to 3,999 of them. I just go one god further. Okay, this isn't the gotcha that you think it is.
It isn't a gotcha! It's a point that you have clearly missed completely. Yeah, we're only about halfway through, so keep watching for the rest, and trust me, it just gets worse from here. So thanks for watching. Please hit like and subscribe, leave a comment, and go to donate.bogosity.tv to keep me doing what I do. And check out all the great content here, like this video selected just for you.